Escape the Dark Castle is a great little adventure game. It's not heavy on the mechanics. It's really all about getting immersed in the writing of the game. However, a recent purchase I made has created a dilemma. So let's get into this.
Welcome to Solitary RPG.
If you are not familiar with Escape the Dark Castle, let me introduce it to you. This is not a heavy game at all. It is truly what the box says. It's a game of atmospheric adventure. It's all about reading the text on the cards as you're playing the game and just kind of getting lost in everything that's going on. It is a brutal game, and your characters will die. The core box set is pretty basic, really easy to get into, really easy to get an understanding of the game. But there are 3 small box expansions for this game: Cult of the Death Knight, Scourge of the Undead Queen, and Blight of the Plague Lord. And each one of these expansions will add new mechanics to the game, making it harder in some ways, but just adding a lot more flavor to the game. Plus, each one of these games can be a standalone adventure. So if you have the core box set, you can buy any one of these. They don't go in any kind of order. And within each one of them, there's 15 chapter cards that you can play through in order and kind of go through a little bit of an adventure, ramping up to the big bosses. And the pictures on the covers are your big bosses for these expansions. And these small box expansions are great, adding more to the game, just kind of building on those basic mechanics and just having a lot of fun. However, recently I picked up the 4th expansion for Escape the Dark Castle, and that is the Big Collector's Box. Let me introduce you to the Big Collector's Box. It seems in the gaming sphere that we all kind of belong to, companies now that have games out with lots of expansions to them are now creating these big storage boxes to kind of put everything in. And I think it's great because now you're taking a bunch of little boxes, condensing, compressing, and putting everything into just one big box. And this is a big box. Plus, it's a great box for organizing all of your expansion material and just keeping things separated, because each one of these expansions adds new mechanics, and maybe you just don't want to play with those mechanics that day. So you don't want to have to kind of sort through all your cards if they were just kept in a big pile. So this box gives you a great way of organizing all of that material. So let me take the lid off. This is all for dramatic effect, for the camera. Okay. And that's what you're looking at. So you have all these little pockets to keep all the different cards in, separate your expansion cards and any of the monsters or things that are specific to that expansion. You have a place to put all your core chapter cards and your encounters and character sheets. You have spots to put all your equipment cards that come in the core set, plus the expansion material. Big old pool for all your dice. They even give you a dice bag with the big box expansion. And a nice place to keep all your rule books. So all in all, this is a great way to organize your contents if you have all the expansions. So that way you just have everything out. Plus, having this on the table when you're playing is just a nice way of putting things back away as you play, as you defeat or overcome the cards. You can just go ahead and put them away right away. So it's just a neat system. I like it. Great cardboard box. You saw the cover. It's a flat black with gloss print, and it goes along the sides. The vacuum form insert is covered with a piece of cardboard just to make it look a little nicer, a little bit more polished. However, with mine, the cardboard is coming loose. The glue just isn't really adhering properly. It's loose all the way up this way too. So what I'm probably going to have to do is take this cardboard piece off, get some like double stick tape and put it in all the different areas, and then put it down and hold it down with the double stick tape, or just not do anything with it. But I'm afraid over time the cardboard's just going to come loose, and I might as well prevent that as any way I can. I don't know. We'll figure that out as life goes on. So let me pull out all of the books and we'll take a little bit of a closer look at things. Let me get this big box off my table. So one of the things they have done with this game is they've kept all of the books the same size. So like the core rule book isn't like a really big book. Even the expansion book, the Death Book, is kept the same size, so everything fits in the collector's box. We will take a look at those two pieces later. But these are your supplement boxes, and then this is your core rule book here that gives you the basic mechanics. This is not a hard game. Character creation is you pick a character. If you're playing solo, you pick 2 characters. Each character has 18 life. You write it down on a piece of paper. You shuffle up your adventure cards. It's 15 cards. You pick a big boss. You put them at the bottom of that deck, and you start going. It's just that simple. I'm not going to get into a rules deep dive on all that, but I do want to kind of briefly go over everything that comes in all the expansion material. The Cult of the Death Knight. What this game will give you as expansion materials, you get 3 new characters. So the core game has some characters. This adds more characters to it. You get 15 chapter cards. So a chapter card is like the adventure cards. These are the cards you're going to flip over, and you have to overcome those obstacles to move on. The 15 cards that come in each one of the small box expansions can be played as a standalone adventure. You put them in order and you just go through it, where you have the big boss at the end. You get character dice. So the game's basic mechanics is each character has a character dice. You also can get equipment to help you along the way. When you have a chapter card that you have to overcome, you're going to have a dice pool. You have to roll your dice to match their dice to remove dice. When all the dice have been removed from the encounter is defeated and you move on. If you don't remove them, you take the attacks back and you start taking damage. It's pretty simple stuff. Cult dice, that's a special dice for this particular expansion, and the cards and everything that you're going through will tell you how to use that. You have cursed cards, which are really cool, and then a big boss. So that's what this expansion brings you, and that's going to be continued on with the next expansion. You're just going to get more cool stuff. You get another 15 chapter cards. And this expansion, which is the Scourge of the Undead Queen, you get a new concept of companion cards, which is really cool if you're playing solo, because you can get a companion just to help you along the way. And they have their own dice. You have a spell book dice, which is going to be from the equipment cards. You have companion event cards, which are specific to this expansion, plus a new boss. For Blight of the Plague Lord, you're going to get 3 more characters, another 15 chapter cards, character dice, plague dice, which is a special mechanic with the plague cards, 4 new item cards, and a big boss. Now what's really cool with these supplements is you could take all of the chapter cards, so that would be another 45 chapter cards, mix them in with the chapter cards from the original set, mix them all up, draw 15 cards, and you just don't know what you're going to get. So this could create all kinds of chaos and could be a lot of fun. But you may not want to do that. And that's what the big box expansion or the collector's box expansion offers you, as a way to keep all these cards separated. So that way you can pick and choose, and you're not just keeping it all piled up together, or you just keep them in your individual expansion boxes. Now let's talk about the big collector's box and what you get with it. Price-wise, it wasn't bad. I think it was $38 plus shipping, which was a lot because it was a big box. But all in all, price-wise, it wasn't bad, and it wasn't just a box you were getting. In order to get all of these additional components, you have to buy the big collector's box. And what are those additional components? You have 6 new boss cards. So basically, the way the game is laid out or put on the table is you take 15 chapter cards, mixed up randomly, obviously, just draw 15 cards. At the bottom of it, you put a boss monster. Well, now you have 6 new boss monsters to put into that deck. You know, you can choose one of those and you can make it random if you wanted to. You have 2 new start cards. So this is an interesting addition to the game. Once you've taken your 15 chapter cards and you've gotten your boss cards, typically you just put this one starting card on the top and you start reading the story, and that starts the immersion in the game. And you've only had the one. None of the expansions came with any of these starting cards. This expansion gives you 2 more to choose from, so now you can mix these up, and you can just randomly put one on the top to start your adventure to add a little bit more unknown factor to it. Obviously, after you've played this enough, you kind of get to know these cards, but it's nice that they've added 2 new ones. I really like that. I kind of wish there was more. Who knows what the future holds for this game? Maybe they'll just do like a little mini pack and just put out like 5, 6 more of these. Who knows? You're also going to get 12 character flaws. So this is a new way of making the game more exciting to play. And if you have all of the expansions, you're going to have 12 characters total. What they say here to do, or suggest you to do here, is to lay out all the characters, deal out the flaw cards, and then pick your characters accordingly. You can do it however you want. You can just decide what flaw cards you want, or you can do it blindly and just put them face down so you don't know what flaw the character has, which is how I do it. Just to add a little bit more of that unknown. Let me pull out those character flaws and we can take a look at them. So some of these flaws are going to be good. Some of these flaws are going to be bad. So I'm not going to read them all, but we'll take a look at stubborn because, you know, it's pretty straightforward. Once per game, you may ignore either the U effect of a chapter card or the effects of a combat special. Does not apply to boss cards. So a combat special would be based on the card that you drew. Maybe they have a special effect or something. You can choose to ignore that once per game. Or the U effect. And what the U effect is when you draw the cards for the adventure, sometimes the text will say you, and what that represents is the person that drew the cards. That is what it's referring to as you drew the card, you get this effect. It could be good or bad. Nobody knows. And that's one of the mechanics that is important when playing solo. Because this is kind of a dice pool game. You need to make sure you have a couple characters with different dice so that you can kind of overcome everything. You're going to pass drawing the chapter cards between the 2 characters even though you're playing solo. That way the effects of you is being spread out between them, and it's not just one of the characters always taking the punishment of that effect, because some of them can be bad. But yeah, we got stubborn, callous, ruthless, gullible, numb, skeptical, greedy, lazy, desperate, deranged, defiant, and cowardly. So some of these are going to be good, some of these are going to be bad. I just kind of shuffle them up and do it blindly, so I don't know what the effect is going to be or the flaw is going to be, and then pick my characters and just go from there. So neat stuff. You can also just shuffle them up, draw the top 2. You do you. You don't have to follow the rules as long as you're having fun. But yeah, this is a new feature with this expansion. And speaking of the U rule, one of the things they've added is a nice metal U token. And here it is. Look at that shine in my light. So one side just says U, the other side just kind of has like this roots or vines, whatever you want to call that. And now I have a really cool metal token to put on the characters as I'm playing so I can remember who went last or who's going to go next, who gets the effect of you in the game. Again, this is a metal token, and this expansion wasn't expensive, so this is just a nice little piece to have. It's just going to make the game feel a little bit, I don't know, it's just going to give it that nice pizzazz, that's all. You're also going to get the Livingstone card and the dice. This is a relic that you might find during your adventures. Just another thing to add to the game. We also now have 2 epilogue cards, so if you're victorious or defeated. You have some cards you can read, which is just cool. We have 4 reference cards. So this is a 4-player game, 1 to 4. Little cheat sheet cards, which are really neat to add. And now we have health trackers. So when creating a character, you give your characters 18 points. In the core game, they give you like a little tab of paper that you can keep track of your health on. In this game, you're going to be losing and gaining health. It's just going to go back and forth, back and forth. Now we have these cool little cards and these little metal skull tokens that we can put on there, and we can just move it up and down, and we're not using paper up and making a mess on a piece of paper. So let's take a look. So this is the tab of paper that comes with the core game. It's pretty thin, and when I'm playing solo, I'm playing 2 characters, and it was just too small for me to use when I was playing my game, so I would just use a regular piece of 8.5 by 11 and just keep track of everything on that. But now with these are double-sided. They go from 1 to 18, and you got these cool metal skulls. Really hard to show on my camera, no matter which way I go with it, because they're so tiny. But you just put it on the tracker, and as you take your damage, you just go down the little chain, and as you gain health back, you go up the chain, up and down, back and forth until you're dead or victorious, whichever comes first. But yeah, just a cool little expansion piece to just add again, this is what the big box collector's box is doing. It's just adding a lot of cool little components to the game to give it a better table presence and just make it feel a little bit more like metal tokens are just cool. We're also going to get a dice bag, which is nothing exciting. They could have done better with the dice bag, but I'm not going to complain for the price I paid for the set. And now we have something called death dice. So death dice are for those of us that really want to make the game a lot harder. So when you're playing the game, what you're going to do is you're going to pull a chapter card. So let's say we pull this, we're going to read it, we're going to enjoy reading it. We're going to build a dice pool that we need to conquer playing against this character. So this character, this monster, already starts with 2 dice, 1 on the fist, 1 on the eye, and you'll just go ahead and pull those dice out. You put 1 on the eye, you put 1 on the fist, and that gives those 2. This symbol here represents how many people are playing the game, and you're going to add that many more dice to this encounter. So playing solo, you got 2 characters playing, so I'm adding another eye and a fist. And then you're going to take your character dice, you're going to roll them. Here I rolled 2 fists, so the smith can remove 1 fist, and the tanner can remove the other fist, and then they would take damage back. So it's a basic mechanics. So what you do with the death dice is you still create your pool the same way. So you still get your fist and your eye, but now you can replace the ones you would roll for your number of characters playing with the death dice. And they have dual symbols on them, plus they have shields on them. So if you roll a shield and a double, let's just say for this particular encounter, in order to get rid of a shield, so when I roll my character dice have a shield with 2 symbols on them. You can spend yours, because this is also like a defense for your character, so you can actually spend the fist and keep it as a shield to defend yourself. But if you want, you can spend it to remove a shield. And with the doubles, what you can do is, let's say each character rolled 1 of the symbols on the double, we can spend our symbols to remove that double dice. Just makes the game harder, which is just really cool and adds just a great mechanic to the game. Plus you have equipment you can use to help you get rid of these doubles. They're just makes the game more brutal, and that's what it's all about. And that's kind of what you get in the big box expansion. You get a few new mechanics to make the game more interesting, and you got just some really cool components and a better way to organize it. I felt it was well worth the price. However, that big box brings me to my dilemma. This was a great addition to my collection for Escape the Dark Castle. I like how all my books can fit inside the spot. I can keep my cards organized and everything is just fantastic. But now, what do I do with all my boxes? And therein lies the rub. These are great boxes. Well made, look gorgeous. The art on the covers of them is very cool. I like the flat black. I like the print on them. But now everything's kept in the big expansion box or the collector's box. I know I can use these boxes for storage. I'm not silly that way, but I think what I'm going through is this idea that one day this game may be worth money. And I'm programmed that way because many of the games that I enjoyed when I was younger, Warhammer Quest being one of them, or Hero Quest, the original, or you get into some of the other like Talisman and just old Avalon Hill board games and just all kinds of old stuff is gone. And I know how the secondary market works. A lot of those older games were thrown in the trash, believe it or not, because nobody thought about the secondary market. Just like our Star Wars toys got beat up and played with, and we didn't leave them in the packaging like people do today, thinking that the secondary market's going to be worth money. And that's where I'm like, what do I do with these? The core game plus the expansion games all have a vacuum insert meant to keep all the cards and everything nicely organized. These are well-designed boxes. Everything's great about them. Do I just pull the vacuum form tray out, throw it away, and just put something else in the box and use it for storage? And I don't know. What do I like? I've got a lot. Then I have a lot of storage boxes, and it just to me, it's just opening up a question and a dilemma that I'm kind of curious what other people do. I'm going to be faced with crossing a threshold here pretty soon with Hero Quest. I have the Hasbro Pulse edition of Hero Quest plus all of the expansions that have come out. Gorgeous boxes, but mostly filled with miniatures and vacuum formed trays to hold everything in, very little cardboard components. And I'm thinking about taking all the miniatures out and magnetizing them and putting them in a storage box of some sort. I have a system for that. And then I'm left with all these empty boxes. And for Hero Quest, that is a lot. There's 4 like boxes like this for Hero Quest, plus 2 or 3 smaller ones, plus even 2 or 3 even smaller ones, plus all the Hasbro Pulse stuff that, that was a big box. And believe it or not, Hero Quest as a game is mainly cards and a board. And I don't need one of those big boxes. A lot of it is miniature driven. It's got a lot of minis to it. And I don't know what I'm going to do when I cross that threshold and go, I got to do something. The game's taking up too much real estate on my shelf. So if you have any suggestions, I'd like to hear what other people do with boxes for expansions. Again, obvious one out the door. I know I can use these for storage of other things. I get that. But is there, like, do people just store them? Do you just put all the boxes in another big box and put them up in your closet someplace? Do you just hide them away? In my home, I have an attic or a crawl space of them. I could put them up in there, but I live in Arizona, and if you don't live in Arizona, you don't understand what it's like to have the summer where it stays above 100 degrees all day long for 3 months straight, and we get up to 120. Can you imagine what my attic space is like? It's like 130, 140. I'd like to hear any suggestions. I'm kind of trying to figure out what to do with all this right now. But before we get out of here, let's take a look at the Death Book. So since I was ordering the big collector's box, I saw that they had the Death Book, and this was just a really cool, again, another immersion piece of the game, so that when you die, or when one of your characters dies in the game, basically the game is over. You take the card, so all the cards have a code on them. You find the code in the book, and these are the codes that would be on the cards, and you just read what happens. And you just got tons of these just short little passages that you can read. And I just think it's really cool. So to end this video, we're gonna read a passage from the Death Book. As you twist to parry one of her axes, the woman buries the other deep into your spine. You fall paralyzed to the ground where you lie twitching and gasping. She crawls on top of you, bites deep into your neck, and proceeds to slurp down gulp after gulp of fresh blood, noisily savoring every last drop. Without you, the rest of your party is soon overcome by the forces of darkness and hauled back to the deepest, darkest of cells, where their screams ring out in vain for the rest of their days. Your adventure ends here. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.